Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching us. It's great pleasure today to announce our Navigating series, Navigating into the Future, Outer Space Law and Economy. I am the founder of Partnership for Advancing Innovative Sustainability, where we are trying to bring together professionals from different fields and places in order to discuss different innovative ideas and solutions, especially in terms of the trends, such innovative like space. Before humanity was thinking, reach for the stars was something like reaching something on Earth. But now reaching for the stars, it's much more broader in a sense of really conquering space. And today we will be talking about these main trends and aspects with two wonderful young professionals, Michał Jabłoński and Kaja Hopej. It's great pleasure to have you here. Kaja is part of the Center for Space Studies, Koźmiński University in Poland, as well as Central European Academy in Hungary, Budapest. She's also part of the law firm, being involved in this space law, venture capital, space law issues, and other very interesting aspects in this connection. Michał Jabłoński, a lawyer, engineer, co-founder of a very interesting initiative, which is a Polish Space Industry Foundation, and also vice president of it. And previously, Michał has also served as a part of Polish delegation to the World Intellectual Property Organization, which is also very insightful and exciting journey. It's great pleasure to have you both, and you are not only professionals in practice, but also in theory in terms of pursuing and being part of this PhD community, PhD journey, which is also really, really great. So to hear from both perspectives, theory and practice. Welcome once again, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Hello, and thank you for the invitation.
So now we will maybe start with the overall question on the involvement of young people. Why is it important to have young people heard and be in place on this table of discussions in terms of space law, economy, other challenges in terms of how we do regulate all these processes? Maybe you could start with this.
The space industry and the space sector right now is going through rapid change, and we have a lot of commercialization, we have a lot of new companies, and we have a lot of new entities that are participating in the space industry, that the young generation and young people need to somehow be involved in this sector, and it's really important to build a sustainable development in the space industry. It's really helpful in a lot of segments of the economy to use space technology. And in my opinion, the development of the space technology and space sector will influence the future generation, and to build a special environment for the future generation for the sustainable development, they need to be involved. So that's, I think, the answer for your question, why young generation and why young people should be much more interested in the space industry. But I think what I'm observing right now, they are really interested in it, and they are starting to be really interested in the space law and space economy too. So yes.
That was also a great point in terms of creating special environment for this, like the new structures to be put forward in this connection. Michał, what is your vision on this?
Yes, I think that space industry and space sector, how would say, is a future. For me, it's a future, and every young people is looking for what who is going to do in future. And in our world, which is need for big specialization, you have to choose something. And I think the space sector is one of these things that you can choose. But for me, this sector will be very important in future, and also is very interesting because you are crossing the borders of human knowledge. You are making something big, and you can get some very interesting knowledge and also meet very interesting people in this sector. And also getting involved in the space sector is giving you a possibility to shape the future of humanity, because I think our lives on Earth are now very based on space technologies, and these technologies are going to more and more important in future, I think.
That's a great point. You mentioned this shaping the future of humanity. And already we are like this in process of triggering and intensifying the process of conquering space. We can see the numbers of 2005, let's say, here, now 2023, how the numbers of these vehicles, these different debris, technologies are increasing, and like kind of space objects are increasing, and so on and so forth. At the same time, even at this point, there are already discussions what to do. Should the space be regulated? There is one point from Elon Musk who has mentioned that Mars, a little part of the space would be the planet, fully free planet without the regulation of countries in his vision. At the same time, my question to you is why is this important to involve the countries? What opportunities does a country's involvement in the space sector provide, both in terms of these technological advancements and overall global influence? Why is this important for the countries to take part in this? Maybe, Michał, I would address this question to you first.
Okay, thank you for these questions. Yes, I think it's a very important question from my perspective, because, yes, as we said, the young generations are interested in space sector, but there are also the people who are some politicians, governors, and I think not all of them are interested in space sector as much as I think, because this space sectors provides many opportunities for also these developed countries, but also these emerging countries. And these opportunities are the first, as you said, the technologies, because the space sector drives advancements in critical areas such as satellite communication, Earth observation, data analysis, what is important for countries, because they can work well inside of them. The administration can work better, but also the environment for business, for industry is better, and they can invite by developing the space infrastructure and investing in space sector. They can invite investors from other countries, which leads us to economical growth, I think. And also there is other issue that when you invest in space sector and have this industry in mind when you govern the country, then you can use this space sector to conduct the diplomacy around the world, because we have space diplomacy, scientific diplomacy, technological diplomacy, and this when you invest in space sector and developing it in your country, then you can build a new relations between other countries which are also developing their space sector, and also then you can make many relations and cooperations globally, and then the country's position in the global stage is better, I think. So yes.
Highlighting these very important aspects and not the least this emerging countries issue, because if we talk about global power dissemination and this diplomacy, it's very important to give everyone the chance to participate equally. So my next question goes to Kaja in terms of what about the countries with insufficient resources, or emerging developing countries and so on how to proactively participate in this space ecosystem and being really powerful participants there, and not just remaining the third world kind of economies without the powerful voices in space diplomacy, not the least.
Well, I will refer partly to the Michał speech and the Michał answer to the first question. So space is about the cooperation, and it's visible, and it was visible when it comes to International Space Station project, which is currently going a little bit in a different way that it was at the beginning. However, there are a lot of space and opportunities for emerging countries. And for example, in my expertise, I'm dealing with the CE region, Central Eastern European region countries, which want to be more involved in the space industry and space activities. So there is a visible tendency that a lot of countries are implementing the space strategies, the space policies, which are direction for the space technologies and then to the space law. However, it's sometimes it's really difficult for countries who does not have that huge heritage with the space activities to be at the same level when the countries who has a lot of history in the space exploration. So I think that because of this cooperation and because, for example, of ESA activities for ESA enlargement process, there are a lot of opportunities and possibilities for the countries. We also see that a lot of countries are trying to measuring the space economy, so the influence of the space technology to the whole economy, to the whole space ecosystem, to the end user, to the society. So more countries are seeing a lot of benefits in the space technology. For example, we saw the recent issues when it comes to flood and how the critical infrastructure can be somehow protected, and the risk of and mitigation of the risk can be somehow stopped because of the space technologies. So I think that's the one side which a lot of countries realizing that the space technology is essential for the functioning of this whole economy and whole country. And of course, a lot of people and all of us are using the space technology. So the awareness of it, I think, push the countries which are not that developed with the space technology to do it, and they are doing really well.
Exactly, very hopeful and promising, like a kind of work for emerging countries as well. Michał, maybe you could also elaborate a little bit more about the benefits, kind of benefits for emerging countries in terms of their security, safety, and kind of economic growth opportunities in these connections.
Yes, thank you. Yes, as Kaja said, this critical infrastructure and mitigation of risk is one of very important aspects of space technologies, and this example with floods, which is very important nowadays. I think it's a very good example, and we can also indicate some other examples for emerging countries. For example, I think one of the important example is precise agriculture, which is in some part based also on space technologies, on Earth observations, on remote sensing. So you can in more efficient way get your agriculture, and also you can enhance your crop yields. And it is important, for example, for helping nations address food security issues. Also, there is another important example, I think, which is security in context, for example, of some military risks, because when you have, for example, war like in Ukraine, then you can use the satellites to use the satellite data to check what your enemy is doing, and also improve your technologies and your war and conduct your war in a better way. I think there is also another important issue, which is maybe not in security, but in more innovation in technology, because investing in space technologies can bypass a lot of traditional stages on industrialization, and you can directly access the advanced capabilities such as was said before, satellite data, remote sensing, global positioning, and so on and so on. And also investing in space sector can provide you growth by driving innovation and creating high-tech jobs, fostering new industries. So that these emerging countries can become a more attractive country for investors and for industry, I think. Yeah.
We will come back also to this question of investing into these fields, doing business stuff. But before, I also want to ask Kaja, in terms of the national policy importance. Why is it important for countries to implement national law, national space law? And I know Poland has been moving forward in this direction, and you've been involved in this as well. So why is it national space law? How do we deal with it? Why it's needed?
We need to remember that the space law, the core of space law, international space treaties, that's our 5 of them, were actually implemented during the Cold War, when only the states were the participants of the space activities. So actually, right now, the paradigm changed a lot, as a lot of private entities are involved in the space industry. Why is it so important to implement national space legislation? That's actually a really broad question. However, I will try to summarize it a little bit. So the thing is that national space legislation is kind of the reaction of this new space trend, the so-called new space trend, so the huge commercialization of the space industry. And when the international space treaties were formulated, actually the participation of the private entities was not predictable, because it was so risky and so costly, and brought a lot of hazards that the private entities by themselves couldn't afford to be the part of the space race. So right now, as we see with the mega constellations and with the small satellites that are deployed every year, for example, in 2023, I think that there was like 2,800 commercial satellites deployed in this space. So this number shows how we are progressing with the space industry. And coming back to the space treaties, where they were implemented, the states took absolute liability for the activities taken by non-governmental entities. So right now, to somehow manage this risk by licensing procedures, by compulsory insurance, or by even space debris mitigations plans or guidelines, the private industry somehow need this national space legislation. And that's the one side of the national space legislations, which need to deal with the international obligation. The second part is actually the dealing and working as a lever and as a leverage for the space ecosystems, because countries can develop the national space legislations in the way to boost their ecosystem, to somehow provide a stable environment for the investors, as Michał said, to provide a stable environment for the space ventures and startups, because without the legislations, we are not sure which activities are legal or not. If we are complying with the international space legislation in the national space treaties, as well as that's how I said that the stable legal environment can provide a lot of access to space activities. And a lot of countries within Europe, for example, are doing this. For example, they are creating the innovative ecosystem around the space resources, as Luxembourg, or in the case of Portugal, as they have a lot of different licenses. So we have this couple of layers that the national space legislations are needed. And what we see in Europe already, a lot of countries are developing national space legislation. As you said, Poland also is working on the act. We have some drafts of the space law. In the sea region, actually, there is not a lot of space legislation already. However, Slovenia implemented recently the National Space Activity Act. I know that the Hungary, in the strategy, they also mentioned the possible of introducing the space legislation. So the space governance at the national level, the creating an innovative space ecosystem, and of course, compliance with the international space law is the core here. So that's the three aspects that we should think about the national space legislation.
Sounds very interesting, and I think for many countries very insightful to also learn from the countries that are already adopting this space national law and to proceed forward. As you mentioned, really these treaties are dating back, the main space law treaties are dating back quite before in terms of time. So now the current trends needs to be addressed with this fresh thinking and fresh approaches. Michał, my question is to you in terms of how to balance these effects of commercialization of space. Because, for instance, on the Earth, on our planet, we proclaimed these sustainable development goals. We aspire to reach sustainability 2030, but how to not replicate the biases that we currently have, but vice versa, to transform space commercialization into something sustainable, innovative, and human-oriented.
Space security and sustainability and using of space by states and also private actors needs to update of actual legal frameworks because as Kaja said, current legal framework is from Cold War, and there are a lot of changes because not only states but also now the private actors are present on the stage of conquering the space. So I think it is very important to prepare some new rules for these private actors. How can they participate in our space in space conquering? But I think from my perspective it is important to take into an account that the states should still be the main actors and main governors of space because the states are, and the idea of state is to make a place for different interests in which these interests are taken into account, and there are some consensus between these different interests because we have private actors which are producing the satellites constellations, what was said, but on the other hand we have the scientific people who astronomers, for example, who would like to observe the sky in the night, and when we have big constellations of satellites then we can have the problem, which is actual problem, the problem of light pollution, which make a lot of harder the sky observations and astronomical observations. The next problem is space debris, which is also because of our developing space technologies. We produce more and more satellites, and they're going to orbit, and in many cases they can stay there because they, I don't know, break up or something like that. So I think it is important to make maybe not make new legal frameworks, because actual frameworks are very general, but I think they are good in this way what they are. But I think we should work more on some new laws which are fit for current problems. One problem about the security, what was also said, because we nowadays we have countries who have technologies to destroy satellites from Earth, for example, and also in the future probably there will be more and more a risk of war on orbit, maybe on moon, I don't know, but with the technological development also is a development of military of weapons, and we should also find some framework to prevent the war in space, because it will be a disaster, I would say.
Exactly, this rapid militarization of space, this debris, and even as some scientists mentioned, even the smallest these particles, these objects can destroy the satellites. So this collision is increasing the risks of collision, and as some people like theorists say, if we have even this number of constellations, this number of debris, vehicles, and so on, as we now have, the risk of collision remains very, very high. So it would be quite challenging in the future. Kaja, what is your vision on this in terms of how to make private entities be more sustainable and more conscious in terms of what they do, and not just putting the constellations there to the space without thinking of the consequences?
Yes, well, I will agree with the points that Michał actually mentioned. And to be honest, I will refer to my previous answer about the space legislation. There is a trend of implementing a lot of soft law mechanisms, and in form of the guildnesses and the standards, that the aim of them are to mitigate the risk of creation, for example, of space debris. And we have a lot of standards which are in practice right now, and a lot of national space legislation refer to this internationally recognized standards. And we are talking here about the International Organization for Standardization, or Interagency Space Debris Coordination Committee, Space Debris Mitigation Guidance, etc. However, they are a little bit different in the scope of them. That's why it can cost a little bit of problematic interpretation. That's why we are working on the universalization of the standards. However, it is important to know that, as you mentioned, the probability of collisions, it is so-called Kessler syndrome. That's the name of this. And actually, there was a study that was made by OECD, and an experimental model has been deployed, where in case of this Kessler syndrome, so the syndrome where the small pieces, even if we will not launch any more satellites into orbit, the small pieces will just collide with each other, and it estimated worldwide that the monetary losses in the case of this situation could be $191.3 billion. So this large sum can somehow show how difficult it is to maintain the sustainable space development in the good direction. So actually right now we are in a critical point when it comes to space debris. So this implementation of standardization to use, but not only for commercial entities, but all of the space stakeholders when it comes to space activities is essential. And of course, the public spending is still the dominant when it comes to space activities. So the proper, I would say, public-private partnership when it comes to space projects are essential too. As well as there are a lot of technologies which are developing when it comes to, for example, remove the space debris or somehow mitigate the risk of creation of the space debris. So we need to connect the law aspects, technological aspects, and policy aspects to make it work.
And I think also hearing the voices from different stakeholders, as was mentioned by both of you before, business, policymakers, young people, like society in general, not only young people, all the stakeholders of this type, as well as, of course, science, business, universities, everyone in this very, very rapidly growing field. And the statistics mentioned today by you is also very quite from 200 per year, we are now moving to 2000 per year, and this is only in terms of these very, very weighty objects, more than certain amount of weight, and not speaking about these smaller parts and constellations. Michał, thank you for mentioning this aspect of militarization of space. Human beings are waging wars on Earth. They have been waging it throughout the history of humanity, but the main difference is that the types of weapons are even more fatal, more devastating, influencing the whole planet, civilians, and so on. And now we talk about this, one of the key risks, according to many researchers, in terms of 2030, is the rapid militarization and weaponization of space. So my question is in two parts. Is it inevitable to have this weaponization? And what policies can prevent it, or somehow maybe restrict this large-scale disaster from spreading further?
Okay, so in my opinion, it is hard to prevent the militarization and weaponization of space because it depends. Maybe not. I not be sound like a lawyer, but I think that this is a problem of power. You know, when you have outer space or any other place. To prevent the militarization and weaponization, you have to agree that you do not do it, or you have to have enough power to stop the others to develop some warfare. So, in my opinion, the problem is the problem of power. Who can stop, or there is another way. Some agreement between countries around the world that they are not going to develop the weapon in space or using space to military purposes. But I think there is also another way, and this way is us, the young generations, because if we will educating people that we should respect each other and there should be no war, because why do it? Then there is a chance that we stop the militarization. There was a famous Polish lawyer, diplomat, Manfred Lachs, and he wrote in one of his books about teaching the international law that teaching people, young people, but also the older people, what is law, why it is important, why should we respect this law, and also why we should respect each other's, is in his view the way how we can stop militarization and make peace in the world. And I also think that there are only two ways. We can have on one hand we can have a strong power which will preventing this militarization, or we can educate people. And I think there are choose between this, but there is also a risk that someone cannot respect this law. But I think it is possible, and we should all what we can do is educate others and talk with them and build a community. Kaja said that space about cooperation, and I think this is the sentence which is the answer also for this question, to build wide cooperation between all the countries in the world.
Sounds great, like in terms of our hope for the future, that education would contribute, and through such a bright minds like you both, the young people all together coming and in the new spirit of co-creation, discovery, and cooperation. Thank you very much for this. And the last but not the least, it was very, very insightful journey today. Really navigation of the future, of the current trends in terms of economy, in terms of law, in terms of overall ethics of this space discovery. So my question is about your message to people watching us on how to spread these ideas, this spirit of cooperation in space further. So maybe we would start with you, Kaja.
Well, to be honest, as I said at the beginning, the space and the whole space ecosystem and space industry is about the cooperation. And we cannot go forward, and we cannot develop our society without the cooperation. And the space technology is the biggest, I will say, example of cooperation between the nation. It's a huge, risky and technological advanced area which can help actually everyone, the whole society. So in terms of space economy, in terms of crisis management, in terms of Earth observation, there are so many advantages which are coming from the use of space technologies that we are not even aware how much of them are. And people starting to be much more aware of it. But to preserve this and to make it usable for future generation, as the space sustainable idea, space sustainable development is talking about, we need to have a responsible approach to this. So we can gain a lot from the space technology and space activities based on the common cooperation, but we need to take care of this environment and this ecosystem. That's why we need to educate, we need to make a lot of cooperation, we need to have talks like this. And yes, that's my message for this. So thank you.
Thank you. It's very empowering and insightful for more people to join, to educate themselves, because really it's about our common future. We can talk about legal space law professionals, people who are very deeply involved in these fields. At the same time, it's of so much common scale. So for everyone, there is no human beings who could be unaffected by our planetarian issues, by space issues, and so on. So it's about the common responsibility of everyone and about the future, because now it may seem like, oh, it's about the long-term perspective, long-term future, but seeing this rapid development that was highlighted today several times, we can talk about the future is coming, it's already coming in this connection. Michał, your message to our viewers and overall young thinkers to join this space further.
Okay, in terms of space, I would say it is important to find your field of specialization, something in which you are good. It don't have to be connected directly with space. Find some field of specializations, and then don't be scared to try to fit it to space, and think how you can use it or how you can use space to develop your specialization, how you can use in your specialization the space technologies, and I think you should also believe in your values, because you should find your way, believe in your values, and go this way. And if you are interested in space, just get the space sector, get these technologies, and try to fit them to your specializations. And also try to meet people which are interested in space, who are working in space, and try to cooperate with them, because I think this is the most valuable thing in space sector. And also for young people, that you can connect different specialization in one, I think, let's say in one field, let's say in space, but it could be agriculture, it could be a medicine, and combine these specializations, and then you will have something big, something great, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much also for this message of finding the passion and following it in terms of specialization, and of course co-creating and cooperating with people who are already professionals in this field. And I'm enormously grateful for this chance to learn from you today, and throughout this series, I hope more people would be able to discover this field of space law, and maybe even dive into this field further as young professionals. It's our first meeting in a row of future possibilities of cooperation. Your really great vision, you good luck with building the future, with shaping the future that you do every day through your professional field of work, through your research and raising awareness, sharing with other people your passion and motivating them. Thank you a lot. It's a great pleasure, and thank you everyone for watching us. Join us for future projects, and we are here to co-create the sustainable, innovative planet and space as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.